Welcome back all, and I trust all had a good break and are ready for our panel discussion session next. So we have three speakers on this panel, namely Mr. Xola Sithole from the Vaal SEZ, Dr. Stefan Lieben from Conjuncta GmbH, and Mr. William Mabapa. So first, I want to introduce Mr. Xola Sithole, who is the Program Director of the Vaal SEZ. Mr. Sithole is an experienced development finance practitioner, business executive, and entrepreneur. Mr. Sithole's career spans across multiple private and public-owned enterprises. He started his career at Unilever in 1993, from where he joined the Industrial Development Corporation between 1994 and 2003. Mr. Sithole joined Akula Enterprises Finance, now CEFA, between 2003 to 2009, in the capacity as the Chief Executive Officer before building his own company that provided tailored consulting services to private and public sector clients. In 2015, he was appointed as the Chief Executive Officer of the Mpumalanga Economic Growth Agency. Mr. Sithole is currently contracted as a technical advisor to the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition within the Industrial Delivery Program and assigned as the Program Director for the Vaal SEZ program. So the SEZs are a very important component in providing incentives for companies who want to set up businesses locally. And we're glad to have Mr. Sithole here to talk about specifically the Vaal SEZ. So with that introduction, I'll now hand you over to Mr. Sithole to start off the panel discussion session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Program Director, and good morning to everyone else. I'd like to just validate that you can see my presentation. If you can, thank you for the opportunity. As the Vaal SEZ, we are very pleased to have had the opportunity to collaborate with the hydrogen economy in Daba. Our objective, our mission is to contribute towards reigniting the birthplace of industrialization in South Africa, which is the Vaal area. My presentation will be a brief introduction, touch on a little bit on contextual issues, and then describe the opportunity and how the Vaal SEZ links to the hydrogen economy before I conclude. The objective that the Vaal SEZ is pursuing is to develop a multi-sector, multi-site special economic zone in the Vaal region, the Sedibeng district or the Southern Development Corridor of the Gauteng City region, with the purpose of regenerating the area and supporting new economic activity, building on the strong historic competitive capabilities and skills of the area. The vision is to build a cohesive society with sustained economic growth, resulting in quality jobs, the creation and retention of quality jobs. And the hydrogen economy is a key component of this strategy and presents vast economic development opportunities. We need to just affirm what is known to all of us, that the Vaal region has experienced a marked decline in economic activity since the late 90s as a result of the downturn in the steel industry and other related industries that are central to the economy of the Vaal and the economic activity in the Vaal. Today, there are very few industries that remain untouched by that downturn, and they operate at a much less significant scale. What is more acute is the fact that these industries have not been replaced by new business or industrial activity, leading to economic decay, that is obvious to all, leading to a fragile society where you see a lot of social unrest and service delivery protests. We have issues around the implementation of policy. We have issues around infrastructure backlogs, severe and chronic uh, lack of maintenance of the infrastructure, aging infrastructure. We have issues, as I've pointed out, around economic diversification that remain unresolved. And we have issues of environmental issues around air quality, which means that young, talented people are living in droves away from the region to seek means of livelihood elsewhere. So this is the context within which the vision for the Vaal SEZ is being developed. But it's not all doom and gloom. There are inherent advantages to the Vaal area arising from its position as the birthplace of industrialization in South Africa. And the first instance, it's the culture and people. There's a long history of industrialization in the area. There's a long, pocket of skills relevant for industrialization, reindustrialization. There are academic institutions. There's a young population. So that gives an advantage that we need to leverage on. The second element is that there continue to be existing businesses who are committed to staying in the area, collaborating with government to resolve the issues that will unlock or enable economic rejuvenation. And these businesses, survey in and survey out, have indicated in the majority that they don't intend to leave the Vaal area, that they would like to see solutions. So that's a positive. It's an advantage for the area that there are private sector partners and investors who are willing to collaborate with government in advancing the economic rejuvenation. There are vast tracts of land that is undeveloped, which is available at competitive prices. That land which is contiguous to industrial zones that are highly developed over decades. So it's easy to expand into those pieces of land. The infrastructure exists. It's not going to be very difficult with proper governance within the local municipalities to restore a culture of maintaining the infrastructure. There are solutions. There is a political will. There is interventions by national and provincial government to assist in the restoration of the infrastructure capabilities of the area, and that is not an unsurmountable challenge. And therefore, we see it as an opportunity, as an advantage. In defining the opportunity, I think it's been said over and again, and it's in the context in particular of the hydrogen economy, that you can't continue with the conditions that I've just described. You have to transition this industrial basin onto a low carbon path. You have to work with existing businesses to continue to support their growth and development, but also to assist them in transitioning into a new green economy future. Over and above that, you have to look at newer industries like the hydrogen economy and the opportunities that all of these attributes I mentioned present for you to take advantage of. The existing industries need to evolve. They simply do not have an option. The status quo is untenable. You cannot continue to, if you want to stem the decline and actually change the trajectory on an upward economic growth trajectory, the existing industries need to transform onto a low carbon economy path. We need to exploit the advantages that we have as a country and as a region for the production of renewables and the utilization of those renewables in this low carbon economy, and to advance competitiveness for all our industries. Hydrogen is a key element of that. But there are also opportunities born by all of the attributes I mentioned, born of those attributes around agriculture and agro-processing throughout the value chain that we need to exploit. We need to reskill and upskill the massive resources available, who have strong industrial skills from having worked in this birthplace of industrialization in South Africa over many years, and to train people for the industries of the future. We have an opportunity to build resilient infrastructure that is reliable, accessible, and affordable, and to exploit the locational advantages that the region presents. So the business case, the Deputy Minister Majola has touched on this, but the business case is principally around 6 elements. It's around a green energy fueled reindustrialization of the Vaal, and envisioning a Vaal of the future, which is a hub of low carbon manufacturing, renewable energy production, and the hydrogen economy. The second one is investments in the food, agriculture, and agro industries value chain. Cannabis and the newer crops is a key element of that, but there are various other opportunities with existing crops, livestock, and other in the processing of those raw materials that exists within and throughout the Sedibeng district. There is opportunities in gateway logistics through air, road, rail, and the river itself to exploit these locational advantages of the Sedibeng district. There are corridors between Gauteng and the inland and the coast and the rest of the African continent that position the Vaal as a region very, very strategically in order to participate in the development of logistics hubs that can take advantage of economic growth elsewhere and also revive the economy within that region. There are opportunities along the Vaal River for the blue economy, for all the requirements of the blue economy over the river, the boating industries and the manufacturing associated with that, and services and other industries that are ancillary to that industry that need to be exploited. There's the tourism sector that needs to be exploited. You would know that very often in the developed world, France, Germany, the UK, for example, in Europe, most of those cities that are thriving economies now, developed economies, are built around a river, and the Vaal is not there in comparison. Obviously, this is a long-term game, but eventually you want to be able to transition the Vaal into an area that takes advantage of this natural attribute. The other part is building a smart city along the Vaal River that will enable SEZ development and drive urban regeneration. So that is going to happen as we implement the special economic zone. It's not just about the factories and industries there. You need to crowd in the young people, the skills, and people need to have a place to live and work and play that is suitable to support the SEZ. So it's strategic as a pillar in the execution of the Vaal SEZ business case. And lastly, and it's been spoken about as well, it's about building strong local linkages between township rural economies with the value chains that the Vaal SEZ will develop and strengthen. I will speak to that a little later further. So what are the near-term priorities for the establishment of the Vaal SEZ? We are involved in the process now of completing the Vaal SEZ master plan, which is going to define the opportunities, position the Vaal SEZ in the manner that I described around our business case, refine the infrastructure requirements, the funding models, the investor pipeline, etc. So that is a priority that we're engrossed with at the moment. The second element is the development of a pipeline of firm investment commitments. We already have strong indicative investments, and as been pointed out, we welcome the indication that the mitochondria energy will locate its Project Phoenix investment on fuel cells within the Vaal SEZ. And that catalyzes through the entire value chain and the hydrogen economy and the renewable space, a lot of other opportunities and other investors that can locate within the SEZ as a result of that. The Gauteng province, the Premier, tomorrow is hosting the Sedibeng Investment Conference in the Vaal, which is another initiative to seek a lot of investors, existing, expanding investors, as well as new investors, to crowd them into the region, the Sedibeng district, and in the Vaal SEZ. And that has been received with a lot of interest. It's a hybrid event, so a link is available for that, which we can share. But that event, the response has been very positive, and we're getting lots of ideas and potential to strengthen that pipeline, because that is the single most important thing, other than the infrastructure, obviously, which must be a given, meaning the resolution of the infrastructure challenges must happen in order for the SEZ to be designated. But what drives the new approach for the implementation of special economic zones in South Africa is investor-led, investment-led. So you would know that the example that is used most often now is the Tshwane Automotive SEZ, which was done in a very quick turnaround, simply because there was a substantial commitment from the Ford Motor Company and also the related supply chain associated with it for investment in that SEZ. And as government, all the way up to cabinet and the president, everything was done to ensure that SEZ is executed in an accelerated fashion. So the point being, securing firm investment commitments advances the implementation of an SEZ, including the resolution of infrastructure challenges that I've spoken about earlier. The next near-term priority is to break ground in next year, in 2022, with this Vaal SEZ. And we're under pressure from investors such as Mitochondria and others to get ready, we've identified and secured the land required, and to get ready for them to be able to get on site within a designated SEZ during the course of 2022. So why is the Vaal SEZ a sponsor of the hydrogen economy in Indaba, or why is this engagement, this conversation of interest to us? A key one is, has been said by many others before me, the deputy ministers in particular, is that it's central to the value proposition of the Vaal SEZ, the hydrogen economy. So we are pursuing, in partnership with private investors, the development and implementation of a hydrogen valley, essentially an innovation cluster within the Vaal SEZ that will crowd in all investments, well, a lot of investments within the hydrogen value chain within the SEZ, and assist in this decarbonization, transitioning, repositioning of the Vaal as an industrial basin. So we want to be the preeminent hub for the hydrogen economy within the context of a national plan for the development of a hydrogen economy, as both deputy ministers have pointed out. And so the things that we will be focused on is developing the hydrogen market for the Gauteng and beyond, hydrogen-based energy security for SEZ within Gauteng, developing solar capabilities to support the hydrogen market, developing a hydrogen value chain that supports the greening of manufacturing industries in the Vaal, localization of production of renewable energy components, enabling IPPs at municipal level to scale up green energy production or beneficiation, skills development in the hydrogen sector, entrenching the development and advancement of Black industrialists involved in the hydrogen economy, and supporting hydrogen economy supply chains within township-based and underserved industrial hubs. So this is what we see as the Vaal SEZ, as the opportunities. We are in engagement with a lot of you in the room today, large and small, about making sure that this vision is realized. We are conscious of the fact that there has to be a realistic assessment of the fact that there's existing infrastructure and capabilities that must be utilized, along with mapping this medium to long-term strategy for the establishment of the Vaal as a preeminent hub for the hydrogen economy. So we're doing both things at the same time, and I think that is possible. So in conclusion, the Vaal SEZ is a multi-sector, multi-site special economic zone that's being developed in the Vaal region, with the mission to contribute towards economic rejuvenation of the area, building on the historic competitive strengths of and skills base of the area. The focus is on low carbon economic clusters, while continuing to support the growth and development of existing industries and helping transition them to a green economy future. We will be the hub, one of the country's preeminent hubs for the nascent hydrogen economy, and we will crowd in both domestic and foreign direct investment throughout the value chain for this purpose. What's important that I wanted to point out earlier is often in South Africa, we talk about new industries, we establish new industries, and then 20 years later, we say, no, let's now focus on transforming those industries. So for us as the Vaal SEZ, it's very important that we design the ownership and participation models that will take advantage of the opportunities that the hydrogen economy presents now. We don't have to try and transform it 20 years later. We want it to be built from scratch as an inclusive economy, and as has been pointed out by both deputy ministers. So we are inviting investors to partner with us in reigniting the birthplace of industrialization in South Africa. And I wish everyone here well through this webinar, and I thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sithole. And there you go, investors, and a clear invitation for you to come and look at the opportunities available at the Vaal SEZ for you. So please take that up and thank you.